Welcome, everybody, to another podcast of Exit the Maze podcast, another edition of our show with Scott Jones, Dr. Donna Marks, and here talking about all things about addiction, addiction recovery, and loving yourself. That's a fair description, right?
Yes, and it's so funny because I was thinking when you were trying to explain to me about how to do the Facebook Live, and I'm so techie illiterate, and it's like, that's what I was hearing. And,
You know, it's
I could understand how people feel when I say to them, you have to learn how to love yourself. And then I try to explain that, and they hear, blah, 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 blah. And it
it's
takes a while of practicing to understand what that means.
that's actually a very good comparison. I mean, because there's people out there that can understand everything about computers and electronics and Facebook and all these things, but
Whatever they know, yeah.
they know nothing about exploring themselves and getting to know themselves and treating themselves well. So that's actually a good comparison. If we had recorded the last 4 minutes before we went on the air, I think people would be laughing their butts off right now. It's like, I think it's there. I don't know if it's there. I don't know where it is. We're broadcasting to you. We just don't know from where. That's
Right.
We've done a handful of shows, Donna, and first of all, can you believe we're like halfway through August already?
No, it's unreal. Time goes by so fast, and
It's
you
it,
never know how much you have. So it's important to really value every day.
Absolutely, very well said. And if you know somebody who has a problem, or if you yourself have a problem, waiting till tomorrow is too late. You've got to deal with it today. We've mentioned it before. It's a different world out there. It's not addiction as usual anymore. Now we've got things like fentanyl that'll kill you in a heartbeat. We've got all those things going on. We need to start moving forward and getting people in recovery.
Does anybody know the name of that new drug that it's even stronger than fentanyl? And I keep hearing about it, but when I try to look it up, I can't find the actual name.
So you're not talking about carfentanil, are you?
No.
Okay, because
Well, maybe. I don't know. I didn't
carfentanil is
understand
about
the word.
100 times stronger than fentanyl itself.
Okay,
Um,
maybe.
yeah, but I mean, why? It's like we keep inventing bigger and better bullets to kill people, but we're not dealing with finding peace. We
Right.
keep creating all these drugs that are just or discovering drugs. Listen, fentanyl has a place in the medical field. It doesn't have a place in the streets. It's just sad. One of the things I thought we'd do today, Don, is kind of we've never really gone back to basics about addiction. And I thought maybe that would be a good show for us to do, is just to talk about. I have a list of questions that people ask, and maybe we can address those. What do you think?
That sounds great.
Yeah,
We
I mean,
want the audience engaged in this. This is
yes,
not our show. This is a show to help people.
and I
So the
think
more people involved, the better.
we need sometimes, like you were just talking about how it's like somebody's saying something, they assume you already know, but you don't. So we can't assume that everybody knows about addiction or what goes on with addiction. So we want to, and of course, if you've got questions or comments while you're listening, Scott Ricard, a good friend of ours, is out there watching. Good afternoon, Scott. We're going to be talking about some real basics about addiction today, and if you have any questions or any comments, please chime in. Let's start with the first and the most important one. And I know this can be probably several different definitions, but what is addiction?
Well, there's so many different definitions, but the one I like is that, you're trying to control something and you can't. And you keep having bad things happen from not being able to control it. So
Okay.
it could be anything. It could be anything that you're trying to control and you can't. Why would you try to control something unless you were addicted to it? Especially when you continue to have something bad happen, even if it's just you feel so bad afterwards. If you weren't addicted, why would you do that?
Now, when you say other things, we're talking about, we used to call them lifestyle addictions. I don't even know if that works as a phrase anymore, but I kind of like the term. But things like, it could be sex, it could be
Somebody.
gambling. What's that?
It could be somebody.
Yeah, It
Trying
could
to
be some
control somebody, trying to control a relationship, sex and love addiction.
Scott's saying
Codependency.
he has a food addiction, so that's good.
Mhm. Mhm, that's honest.
That's yeah. I'm not saying it's good that you have a food addiction. I didn't mean that, Scott. You know that. But what I mean is, it's good that people can just honestly speak about those things.
Yes.
Um, but
And food is a tough one because you have to eat.
yeah,
So you can't ever recover from a food addiction if you don't learn that every addiction is a substitute for self-love. And when we're nourishing ourselves with those foods, we're picking things that were made to get us addicted. They have high fructose corn syrup, lots of other kinds of sugar, and also trans fats. And those things are very addictive. Our brain there's some research you can look at online put out by Harvard and other medical centers that when that sugar hits the area of the brain, it's the same area of the brain that crack cocaine stimulates. So it's a very powerful addiction. People do not even begin to understand how powerful sugar addiction is. And so it's no different than alcohol. If you really want to learn how to love yourself, you have to replace that feeling that you get from that food that contains guaranteed, you're substituting those warm fuzzy feelings and you're getting it from those foods. And you cannot be healthy and lose the weight if you continue to do those foods, no more than an alcoholic can ever have moderate drinking. It just, once you get addicted, it's just not possible.
now although
What I teach, this is important, what I teach people who are food addicts, channel all that energy of that addiction into a hobby or a career. And that means you can learn how to fix the foods you love without the poison in them. And you take the time that you spent on going out and buying these things or going to fast food places or bakeries or whatever into preparing them yourself with good natural ingredients that don't include addictive substances. And then you meet two needs. You get that satisfaction of preparing something, and also they still taste really good. I've had lots of these types of products from people who have done just what I said, and they're delicious.
Tiffany's joining in, and she's being brutally honest, I should say. I love carbs too much.
Yes, but what happens when we start eating carbs instead of real food? If you eat carbs with real food, and by that I mean vegetables, protein, and fruits, you will not have the same craving. It's when we're hungry and we start eating carbs that it's just like sugar. It's more. And so there are bad carbs and good carbs. So you want to make sure that you learn about that. And you'll find that if you eat healthy carbs, the craving for the bad carbs, and I like them too, so I understand.
Yeah.
I like popcorn, but I don't eat a whole bucket of it if I've had dinner. I'll have a little bit of it. I just don't want as much because the whole chemical balance in the body and the blood sugar being stabilized and things like that have a big factor on how much we crave whatever we're eating.
Now, there's a physiological thing that happens when with food, and with all addictions in a certain way, because it builds brain chemistry. It does different things that we become accustomed to physically. But you said the same thing a couple of times over and over again, and I don't think we really apply that to food. It's not necessarily about wanting a ho-ho in my belly. It's about how it makes me feel to put that. And I don't even know that a lot of people are in touch with the fact that you're doing it to get a feeling. You're not doing it because you want food in you. You're doing
Right.
it for a feeling. That's a big key to connecting with your problem, isn't it? Is
Yes,
understanding those feelings.
I love chocolate ice cream or chocolate chip cookies, or what did you call it? A ho-ho? What?
A ho-ho, the Hostess ho-hos, the chocolate with the creamy center.
Oh, they're so good. And Twinkies.
We just triggered 28
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, they are so good. But you have to learn how to make them with gluten-free flour and
Oh, that sounds
there's
lovely.
delicious palm sugar, monk fruit. There's all kinds of sweeteners that are not addictive. But anyhow, you can make them. and they're very, very good. But yes, it's that feeling. Oh, this taking me back to those warm, fuzzy feelings in childhood where I felt like, I needed to be soothed and I was given these, or I learned on my own that they made me feel happy inside when I had them. It filled that void, it filled that hole. And so I'm reliving that memory, as well as I explained earlier, that sugar's hitting that brain part that's going more and more and more. So once we learn how to, like I said, you don't want to give up something without replacing it with an act of love. And an act of love would be learning how to make those things yourself and a healthy version of them.
I'm wondering because rarely do I see somebody with a food disorder talk about being hungry. Because it's not about being hungry, is it? I mean,
Well,
they may
it
assign it to
depends.
being hungry, but it's not really about being truly hungry.
It depends, because that we know for sure that people who are obese are often malnourished, and they're always hungry because they aren't getting the nutrients that they need. They're eating
Ah,
junk food and fast food, and they're not getting the nutrients they need. So there's always this feeling of hunger, and that is a physiological hunger. But there's
okay.
also that emotional hunger that they're trying to fuel and feed, which is never satisfied with. You can't, emotions aren't made to respond to food. They do, but that's because of the chemical thing that's going on in the brain.
Right.
Our emotions are to be dealt with emotionally, not with food. Our hunger is to be dealt with food, not emotions.
So I love eating pizza because I love pizza. I also love winning. I love winning. Who doesn't? I mean, you win on a lottery card, or you win at a poker table. Winning is fun. I like winning. I like money and all those things. But when you were getting into a dictionary, it goes beyond that. So now I'm not gambling just for the win. I'm gambling for the entire feeling of the entire experience. Right.
Right. Well, gambling addiction is like cocaine, and they tend to go hand in hand. It's the stimulation, it's the push, the jolt, the time passing really quickly and having so much fun, and it's that kind of same area of the brain that it stimulates.
Our friend Karen is joining in and sharing that, yeah, I'm able to join in, and I don't eat right. She doesn't eat right. Um, so there's food is a big thing. I mean, um, you're right. I mean, the biggest, I don't ever have to drink another bourbon. I don't ever have to drink another scotch. But if I've got a food problem, I've still got to eat food.
Right,
So
but you
this
don't
is
have
a
to eat the
major
foods that are
retraining of every thought process I have, isn't it?
not every. You don't
Okay.
eat the foods that are causing you to have a problem, that are causing you negative consequences, and those are sugar and gluten
So if I were
and
to get away from
trans fats.
if I were to get away from those things and start eating, say, spinach, it doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily mean that I'm going to it doesn't mean I like spinach actually. It doesn't mean I'm going to eat spinach addictively though.
No, it means
Does
you
it?
eat whatever you want without trans fats and
Okay.
sugar, bad sugar anyhow. There are things, like I said, sweetened with natural sugars, palm sugar, monk fruit. And I'm not a big fan of artificial sweeteners because they don't agree with a lot of people. But if you don't have a problem with them, you can use them. But your brain isn't necessarily fooled by them. So if you use natural sweeteners that aren't addictive, what's happened, like cane sugar isn't too bad, but what's happened is like highly refined sugar, and now we have high fructose corn syrup. And you think that you're having a waffle, let's say, with maple syrup because it says maple syrup. But if you look at the ingredients, it'll say maple syrup flavoring, and then it'll say 100%, high fructose corn syrup, which is so bad for you. I don't want to spend our time here telling you all the negative consequences of it. Look it up online.
Yeah.
It's really bad. And you could just as easily buy honey or 100% pure maple syrup, and those are natural ingredients, and I haven't ever heard someone say they got addicted to them.
All right, let's we got some comments coming in, so we're going to take a look at those. Scott says, I cut out the bad carbs and several other times this year and have lost 45 pounds. Good for you. Good for you. But I still have lots of food cravings.
Oh, that's a really good, and that's an indication that you're malnourished. So I would really suggest that you can see a nutritionist, but have one that specializes in food addiction if you're going to do that. I cross, these kind of areas all the time when I'm working with people with food addictions. But you can look online, and it's really important that you get healthy. You need amino acids, you need minerals, you need B12. There's just so many nutrients that if you've been eating poorly, you're not getting. And so now your body's craving things because it's trying to extract those minerals and vitamins from whatever foods you are eating.
That's a great point, Donna, that, a lot of people think I take away a bad habit and I'm okay, but you have to replace it with something good. So if you're going to take away carbs, replace it with healthy foods that will fill and satisfy you and meet your nutritional needs.
Well, first of
And
all, your body needs carbs. That's what burns the fat.
but healthy
So
carbs and
you don't want
natural
it
carbs.
burning your muscle and depleting your body of its own,
Right.
value. So there are good carbs like avocados, sweet potatoes, all, certain rices. So there's all kinds of good carbs. So you don't want to eliminate them from your diet. That's why I say go online, study good carbs versus bad carbs, study basic essential nutrients that the body needs. And if you need the support, then go to a nutritionist who understands addiction. There's also Food Addicts Anonymous, and they talk a lot about that. They'll even give you a food plan for proper nutrition. And then there's things on TV. I actually got one just to see what it was about, like Goli. They talk about the insulin resistance, and they put a whole food plan together of foods to eat and foods to avoid. And that way you don't have to think about it. And then they have some type of mineral and vitamin supplement that you take that helps regulate your insulin production so that your metabolism works right. But there's all kinds of good, healthy choices out there that you don't want to give up carbs. That's not healthy.
No,
You want to
absolutely.
give up bad carbs, just like you don't need to give up anything. You want to give up the things that are addictive.
But replace them and find things that keep you busy too, and hobbies that are good for you. Remember, if you just take something bad away, you leave like an empty space. And when there's an empty space, we usually fill it with what's most familiar, and that's usually the bad habits. So
Absolutely.
be aware. Karen, actually, this is a good point Karen's making. I eat instead of having a glass of wine. So she wants to cut out the alcohol,
It's
but
a
now
really good choice.
so we pick up a different. How often do you see that, Donna, where people are trying to fix one area, but then they pick up either bad habits or even addictions in other areas?
Oh, I misunderstood her statement. I thought she said now that she's not drinking, that she's eating healthy. Because some people, when they're drinking alcoholically, they're not eating at all. So I thought she was telling us I misunderstood. So
Yeah,
yes, transferring, yeah, that's the problem with treatment. You go to treatment or you go to a 12-step program and you stop that specific behavior. But as I say in my book, Exit the Maze, there's only one addiction, and it'll keep relocation, has a relocation policy that never ends.
it
So
really does.
yeah, for me, like I quit smoking and then I wanted to eat more. So I quit drinking, then I quit smoking. I want to eat more. So, I don't want to gain weight. So I'm running marathons and going on these ridiculous biking excursions and stuff. And I didn't think I was doing it addictively because I wasn't competing with all these people. I was just doing it for the fun of it. But nevertheless, it was addictive. I can package it any way I want. And, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. So we have to address that emptiness, that malaise. In my opinion, it's a combination of becoming addicted, and then you take it away and you've got that invisible hole. But in most cases, there's also some underlying trauma involved, but not always, but in most cases.
But that's a good reminder to be very careful about the habits that you pick up. When you're putting a bad habit down, that you have to be very thoughtful. You have to be very mindful about what you're going to do. because if you just grab something, you might end up doing that addictively. So think about what you want. What is a healthy way of doing things? But I'm afraid people just put something down, and then I'm going to actually go. I'm going to skip. I'm going to go back to these other comments, but Karen just threw something in because we're talking about, we talked about her with the food, and then she says, I have the wine. So instead of drinking wine, I eat. But now she's saying, is it bad to have a glass of wine every night?
Well, nothing's bad unless bad things are happening. So if the glass of wine is like mine used to be, I wanted the
Like
big
a fishbowl, right?
and then when they bring these little dinky glasses of wine to the table, it just made me furious. So anyhow, you know,
That's great.
why bother? No, it's not bad to have a glass of wine every night unless something bad is happening.
Yes. And if you're having it because you're trying to escape from something, that's not a good thing either. A lot of people go home and I have to have a drink to rewind or to unwind after a day. I have to have that to unwind. Well, if you're dependent upon that to get an emotional response, then it's probably not a good idea. But
Is it working for you?
yeah, is
What
it
happens,
working?
what I see so often when I'm working with people in their 30s and 40s, they're in, and I work with a lot of executives and things like that, and the pressure, in the pressure cooker all day, and they go home at night, and then they'll have a couple glasses of wine, or they'll take clients out to dinner and they'll have more than that. And then they pay for it after about 10 years. They really start paying for it. They feel sluggish. They don't want to get up and work out in the morning. They have to, they gain weight. It's an accumulative experience, addiction. It does, for most people, it happens over time. And for most people, they are functioning members of society. They're not the Skid Row image that we've been led to believe, or the person who's 800 pounds, or someone who's gambled their whole life away, or someone who's, had permanent injury because of their sex addiction. Those are the last stages. That's what can happen ultimately if you live that long. Most addictions, they occur slowly and assiduously that you don't even realize what's happening. And you become so accustomed to it, and then you get so tired of trying to control it that you just give up.
Karen seems, she said, thank you, that we're right, that I think we've nailed her, that's how she unwinds. And so if that's necessary to unwind, you might want to rethink that.
So we don't want to stop unwinding. We want to replace that toxic substance, alcohol, with something that's loving. So what else can you do to unwind?
It could be music,
Meditate.
it could be a cup of tea, it could be read a book, it could be take a walk. There's so many different things. Try everything because you don't know. You discover things when you replace bad habits. It's the funny thing is when you put new stuff there, sometimes you could even discover stuff about yourself you never even knew.
Absolutely. And you can change your consciousness during the day. What is making you uptight? Are you
Yes.
pushing too much into your day? You're cramming too much in, or you're not pacing yourself? Are you taking care of yourself during the day? Are you getting to work a few minutes early so you're not stressed out? Are you having breakfast and lunch so that isn't stressing you of having low blood sugar? Are you packing too much into your schedule? I understand if you're a professional that sometimes you have no control over these things, but you always have control over how you respond to them. And sometimes when I'm getting my publisher is saying, I need this and this and this, and the publicist is saying something else, and I've got appointments, and sometimes I'm feeling that hair on fire feeling, but I do have control over this is going to pass. Just take it one thing at a time. It always works out. It does. And keep your state of balance. And so
Absolutely.
we always have control how we respond to stress.
So Tiffany, we're going to go back to the food for just a moment here. It's amazing how we just started with one question and we got this whole run. This is beautiful. And this is why we're doing this show, to answer these kind of questions and to talk about these things openly, honestly, and even with a little bit of
wanted to know and didn't ask.
Yeah, and a little bit of humor in the meantime too. But Tiffany says, I just quit white carbs and sugar and went through a physician detox for a week. The cravings have subsided now, but it was tough at first. So that's excellent. She went to a physician and talked to them and worked with them to cut out some of those things. That's very good.
Yes, yes. And you do go through some withdrawal, but there's
Right.
things that you can do to minimize your withdrawal because what's happening is your brain is re-regulating. So Karen, our associate, specializes in all this. If anybody's interested, they could contact her. Scott has her contact info, and so do I. But she does the blood test, and they can tell you exactly what's going on in your body, where the deficiencies are, including even if you have metal. Too much metals in your body, which is a huge problem we know for children and adults, and tell you what you need and get, because sometimes you just cannot catch up with food. You're so
Yeah.
far behind. You're so nutritionally malnourished that you cannot catch up with food quick enough, and you need supplements. So
Yeah.
if you go to a physician, make sure that they have that type of plan in place for you.
And not to mention, I mean, just I don't want to get into a whole nother area, but a lot of our soils are depleted from minerals and things that we're used to having. There's not as much magnesium in our fruits and vegetables that we're used to getting. So people end up being magnesium deficient. You see cramps and you see migraines and things like that. A magnesium
Absolutely.
a
When you think
magnesium
about
supplement could be very helpful for a lot of people.
yes. And when you think about the ocean covered the whole planet, and all those nutrients from the ocean were in the soil. And then from constantly using the same soil and not rotating crops, yeah, they put fertilizer on them, but we don't even know what that is anymore. And what we do know, unfortunately, that in many times it's got really poisonous things in it. So anyhow, the point is that your brain and your organs need certain minerals that they were designed to have. And so this is
Absolutely.
something you can research on your own, but also there's people like Karen. She wrote a nice little book. What's it called, Scott?
It's called how to beat your addiction without, or how to beat your addiction without sugar something. I don't have it in front
Yeah,
of me.
but
I can't remember the name of it.
it's about the brain and why it gets
Yeah. How
dysregulated,
to
how
heal
to
the brain without sugar and other substances and
right,
stuff.
right. It's,
But
it's a great little book, and
yeah,
it's available on your website, isn't it?
it is there on the website. So go
Yes.
to
And there's a course too. There's a
atceducation.com.
whole course there that you guys can take to learn about all this.
Well, we got a couple of courses. We got Donna's course where we talk about the things we're talking about in this show are born from her course about understanding addiction, understanding the some answers that we haven't thought about, and some different ways of thinking about addiction and thinking about rethinking recovery and what it means and what you can do. Tiffany, let's finish up with Tiffany. She's saying the doc said that my arthritis pain would subside if I ate nutritious food. She was in pain all the time, and I'll attest to that. She was having a real struggle. She's lost 5 pounds. She's already starting to feel the effects of eating healthier on her joints and her arthritis.
Absolutely.
So
One of
this
the things
affects everything, right? Right?
well, one things I talk about in my book on food addiction, and that's just one, of course, is that we get so poisoned and that almost all medical illnesses are from food addictions. And arthritis is another example. But the number one killer is heart disease. And what causes heart disease? Alcohol, drugs, tobacco, sugar, and trans fats. Number two, stroke, cancer, kidney disease, lung disease, go right down the list. And I understand that there's a genetic predisposition, just like to alcoholism. But if you don't put these things in your body, you don't get those illnesses most of the time, and you also don't get addicted. So here's the thing, they're made to get you addicted. I want people to reclaim their power. Take back the power. We've given it away. Take it back. And take it back, not in an angry way, but of a self-care like Tiffany's doing here. She was willing to take a week to get detoxed, and she's already feeling better. And you will too. You will too.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is brilliant, brilliant stuff. Let's see. Catherine Young, we haven't spoken with her yet today. She loves what you said earlier. It's not bad unless something bad is happening. Sometimes that's the easy way to define things, because we're not saying alcohol is evil. We're not saying that everything is evil.
I'm not anti anything.
And I'm not even saying that ho-hos have a place on the planet. Ho-hos, the hostess ho-hos. Everybody knows what they are. Twinkies. I'll go with Twinkies. Everybody loves Twinkies. it's got a place on the planet, but it doesn't have a place for being your meal. It doesn't have a place for being your only nutrition. It does have a place for a birthday party, maybe, or something, right?
Right.
Everything has a place, but it doesn't always belong in every human being, and it doesn't belong in every situation, right?
Right. And if it triggers you to buy a whole case of them, then you got a bad thing happening then.
I know, but it's great food because that'll survive the apocalypse, the Twinkies, because there's nothing natural in those suckers. It's like eating a sponge. It's
Right.
oh, but I used to love those as a kid. Let me tell you. And the funny
You
thing
love
is
the feeling that they let you love the way they made you feel.
Karen saying that she needs that. What you suggest with Karen, uh, for Karen to go see Karen. Now Karen already knows Karen and I, so we can work something out with you.
I'm not
It,
sure what
it,
she charges, but how
yeah.
much are you spending on things that aren't good for you? How
Thank
much are you
you.
spending on medical bills? How much are you spending in bed every day? How much are you spending losing your life and losing things that you enjoy? I mean, when you add all up up those costs, making them an investment in your mental and physical health, there is no price to put on that. And that is one of the things with self-love. There is no price for your happiness and your physical and mental health. And they all go hand in hand.
We've had such bad lessons in our lives that have been passed down from everything from TV to even our parents. And as we learn more, we need to change and adapt. Donna, you and I grew up in a very similar time. And I'm sure there was always bread on every table at every meal because we thought we were supposed to have bread at every meal. And if we didn't have good Italian or good French bread, we'd bring out the Wonder Bread, put butter on it, and just eat that with our spaghetti, which was full of carbs as well. We were carbing up left and right. We were doing all those things left and right, but we've learned. So adopting and changing, it's not a bad thing, but I understand that we're kind of going against the grain of some of the things we learned in our youth, aren't we?
Right. But I bought a pasta maker and I make gluten-free pasta and I serve it and people have no idea that it's gluten-free.
Do you tell them
I like it
afterwards just to
better.
see what they say? Do you tell
No,
them afterwards?
no, not
Oh, okay.
necessarily. If they ask me, how do you make it? I'll say, well, I have gluten-free flour and that gluten-free. But no, they can't tell. Also, I'm not a bread maker, but you can get gluten-free bread. It's not bad, especially if you serve it warm. And butter isn't bad for you. It's the animal fats don't have the trans fats in them that are so bad for you, especially if you get a healthy, organic fed cow type of thing, which gets expensive. I understand. But again, in a way, if you pay more for your food, you're not going to, binge on it either. But you're loving yourself. You're taking care of yourself is what I'm saying. And then you can still, they have gluten-free pastas in the grocery store, but it's processed and it's better. There's so many people with gluten sensitivities that have totally messed up their whole digestive systems and all. Again,
Yeah.
this is something you can't necessarily get this from a physician, by the way. I'm working with someone now who went to a doctor. She's had terrible intestinal problems. And then when I would say, like, give up this, it gets straightened out. And then she'd go to the doctor and he says, I'm not a dietitian, as your therapist. And she'd ask me, are you a nutrition? I said, no, but I've studied a lot about it. But the proof is in, you get cleared up and then you start eating those things and then you have those symptoms again. So that's common sense. You don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand that. But,
I think,
once someone gets on
most
these,
diseases, Donna, most diseases can exist in a healthy body.
right,
Most disease. I'm not saying not everybody's going to be cured of everything. Sometimes cancer
right,
comes and we still don't know why.
right,
Sometimes things happen, we still don't know why. But most diseases and most illnesses do not exist in a healthy body, a body that is nutritionally sound and pH balanced.
exactly.
Now, pharmaceutical won't tell you that because they can't bottle that. They can't bottle good nutrition and pH balance.
Well,
But
if they
we
could, they
can do it.
wouldn't because they can't keep selling it.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We do have a question here, and we're going to give this about another 10 minutes, and then we're going to wrap this up. But any tips for me? This is Catherine Young again. I'm 35 days smoke free after 40 years of smoking. First of all, congratulations.
That is fantastic.
Defeating a 40-year-old demon that lives inside of you is something to be. That's something huge. I did the same thing when I quit smoking, and I got to tell you, my hat's off to you. She goes, reduces 2 pounds.
Are
Glad
you
I
saying
didn't
she's saying
gain.
she lost 2 pounds? Glad she
Yeah,
didn't gain.
yeah, she lost 2 pounds, but she hasn't. Let me see. She's 35 days after 40 years of not smoking. So
Well, what does she want to tip with? That's what I'm
I'm not
trying.
sure, because it sounds like what you're doing is working, Catherine. So if there's a specific question you have about it, all I will tell you though is that just understand you got 40 years of a habit, you got 35 years of not doing, or sorry, 40 years of a habit, 35 days of not doing that habit. That habit is not going to be gone from your mind or anything else in 35 days, but it does get better each day. It does get better each day. And, and this is again a matter of loving yourself enough not to put that poison in your body. Is that an oversimplification, Donna?
No, congratulations. Smoking is one of the hardest things to do. Nicotine used to be the most addictive drug on the planet. It probably isn't anymore now with fentanyl and all that, but I mean, it's highly addictive. So when I quit smoking, I actually went to a hypnotist, and she put in a lot of good, positive self-love messages. That, every time I'd think of a cigarette, this is what she told me, and it has worked I've been abstinent for about 35 years, and I smoked for 20 years. I started when I was 12 years old. Cigarettes were my best friend. I loved them no matter what, no matter what. I didn't even want to quit smoking. I tried so many times, I gave up. But finally, I realized it was a substitute for love. It was a substitute for my connection with the higher power. So she told me that I would, anytime I think about smoking a cigarette or see someone else smoking a cigarette, I would be glad that I didn't. I wouldn't care what anybody else was doing. I would just be glad that I'm not. And that to satisfy those oral needs, get some sugar-free candy, get some of my favorite teas, and again, prepare some healthy foods, nice, healthy food, salads, chicken salad, tuna salad, stuff like that. And I spent a lot of time in the kitchen doing things like that. She also told me, like you, that I would lose weight. I wouldn't gain weight. And I did. Now, keep in mind that some of the reasons I lost weight is because I was out running and bicycling these massive amounts of distances, but that isn't necessary. But to add some exercise, when is the worst time? When is the worst time? For me, it was like in the morning with coffee, or
Okay.
when I was upset. Those were the worst times. So instead of having a cigarette with coffee in the morning, I'd sit out on the patio and enjoy nature and have the coffee. I didn't give up both. When I was upset, I would get out my pen right away and journal my feelings or call someone and talk about it instead of smoking them away. So we have to replace that old behavior with something new that's good for us.
Yeah, she's saying the morning was the worst time, so I guess you understand that.
Because you've gone most of the night, but you can also use that as a positive thing. Even if you've gone for a few hours during the night without a cigarette, you did it, and you can keep on doing it now.
Fantastic. I want to thank Debbie for watching. She's letting us know. Debbie
One more
Bettendorf.
thing. If someone's
Yes.
quit smoking, by the way, Smokers Anonymous, and I think they have one down in Fort Lauderdale, is wonderful. It's really wonderful, and people have had great success there. And it's good to get those chips and get that encouragement and have that group support. Anyhow, I just wanted to say that because I didn't do it, but they didn't have it at the time, but they do have it now. And when I've referred people there, they have really gotten a lot out of it.
Yeah. Not as easy as to find as the AA meeting where everybody's standing outside the doorway smoking before the meeting. So it's not as easy to find, but if you could find it, no, you're right. The support and having other people, but you know what? Just hats off to you after 40 years. Thank God. And,
congratulations. And just remember, like, if you really want one, just say, you know what? Tomorrow I might want one, but today I'm not going to have one.
Yeah.
Just for today.
And do yourself a favor.
Really well.
Catherine, I had to adopt a little bit of NLP, a little bit of this and that to get by. One of the things that I decided to tell myself is not that I can't smoke, because I proved for 40 years that I could. What I always told myself, instead of saying I can't go have a cigarette, I say I choose not to.
Right.
Start
That's a big
using
one.
those words. Those are big words.
Yeah.
I
No
choose not
choice.
to, because when you choose something, you don't feel like you're being robbed. But if you say I can't do something, it feels like somebody took something from us and we want it back. Even if we don't want it, we want it. So change your verbiage. Not that you can't smoke, but that you choose not to smoke.
Right. And also, I put prayer to my addictions. I can't do this. Please help
Oh
me. And
yeah,
it's worked every time.
absolutely. She goes, I will check out the NA meeting in Fort Lauderdale. All right, whatever meeting you
All
want to go
right.
to, you check it out. Scott wants to say congratulations on quitting smoking. Look at this, Catherine. You're getting like this whole cheer section. And good advice from Karen.
Thank you,
And
Karen.
and Catherine saying, hey, she loves that. I choose. That's right.
Yes.
Just keep saying, I choose. Let yourself know that by your choice, you can be healthy.
Right.
Don't put limitations on it by saying, I can't do something. Always keep your possibilities open by saying, I
And
choose.
that little addiction is not your choice. That little addiction in there is trying to get you to smoke. So you want to keep your power and stay anchored to your own choice.
That's right. If we can go back in time and take out Philip Morris, we could save all these problems, but we can't. So
There would be
let's
something else.
there'll be something else. Something else. Donna, we've run to the end of the show, and it's been a great show. I had 10 questions. We got through one of them. Believe it or not.
Good. More for next week.
We'll continue on with these next week,
Yay. Keep
actually.
writing too.
But this is all about you guys. Thank you. We understand at 1:00 on a Wednesday, or depending if some people are out of this area. And let me remind people, by the way, that my friend Debbie Bettendorf, her show's on tonight. I will post it on my Facebook page, so you can check out. It's called Find It with Debbie, and Debbie has great guests, and they're all about finding things that we need for ourselves in our life. And it's a great, great program. So please check that out tonight. But all of you joining us, thank you for being here on a Wednesday afternoon. And they're saying thank you. Thanks, Scott and Donna. Great show. Thank you. And Scott saying thanks for your advice. You got it. You got it.
Thank
You
you for
guys make
tuning
us
in.
happy. It makes us happy to just have you guys join in and lead the conversation.
Absolutely. We
And
want to have millions of people participating and helping each other.
absolutely. And you guys lending, just you guys sharing with each other and congratulating each other. That's important. And Catherine's last comment here is great show. First time here. Well, we hope it's your first time here, but not your last. We hope that you keep joining us every Wednesday at 1. Guys, if this time is absolutely terrible for you, let us know, because we might be able to do a shift. But for now, this is what we're with. But we're also new at this too. This is new for Donna and I to put this show out there for you guys. We both do other things, but this show is a brand new show, and we're looking for our audience and looking for you guys to participate and enjoy it as much as we enjoy doing it. So definitely keep the comments coming. Donna, any final thoughts for the day? I mean, we covered a lot of stuff.
No, I just want to thank the audience for participating. We love your questions and comments, and especially those of you that share your struggles. And it's really great because every time you share something, you are helping so many other people. So thank you.
Absolutely. I'll double down on that. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for being a part of this. Share this with your friends. Please let them know that we're out there, and join us next week. Who knows what's going to come up? We're going to ask question number 2, and that might carry us for 5 shows. Who knows?
All right.
All right. So for now, for Dr. Donna Marks, I'm Scott Jones, thanking everybody for joining Exit the Maze podcast. And until next week, everyone, please take care of yourselves and do something nice for yourself. It's worth doing. It's worth doing. Bye-bye.
Bye.